Welcome back to Cartoonist Kayfabe Ringside Seats. And we are live with New Comic Book Day Night Live. We've got Box Brown here with us. What's up, everyone? We've got co-host Manny Gomez. Really, we're all co-hosts here, man.
Yeah, man. This is
we got Len,
this is communal.
Rocco.
This is a communal podcast, man. Everybody brings something to the table, which is why I love doing this.
Absolutely, man. It's one of the funnest things we do in the week. So we are here in the month. So we're here with the legendary Eisner Award-winning Box Brown, author of the brand new book, He-Man Effect, which is truly amazing. Anyone here who grew up in the 90s, had these action figures sold directly to your heart, knows, feels it. All right, so we're here. We usually start it with a little getting to know you. We start off with a little what's up. So let's just get everyone in the room since we got just 6 of us today. So let's head over to Manny. What you up to, brother?
I mean, it's Wednesday. I hit up the comic shop today, so I picked up a bunch of good books. And I do the Comic Lounge with Ryan Balcom, and we actually recorded a slew of episodes today, which will be coming out during the week. We're going to be doing a whole bunch of stuff on Keith Giffen,
Nice.
Yeah. So, and we're going to try and cover books of his that don't normally get covered, like the Defenders run he did, that was sort of with the same team he had on Justice League, and Images of Shadowhawk, and a few of the things that people tend to forget he did. And we're also doing a bunch of episodes on the horror and Halloween related comics, which have been a lot of fun. So I've been busy doing that and just reading comics, man, reading about them. And it's, my favorite medium, my favorite hobby. So I live and breathe them every day, man.
Hell yeah. I hear that.
Man, be more comics, as you say.
I'd be more comics. Exactly.
Yeah.
I've been reading a ton of stuff. I just finished up this Devil Quest for my Grendel podcast, The Devil in Detail. We just did the last episode for this yesterday. And we talked a lot about Bill Watterson's The Mysteries. It is glorious. And I didn't know about the breakdown of who did what art, but Bill Watterson wrote it. And he and this other artist, John Cashed, every photo is like painting, clay, wood. There's all this amazing stuff that they did. There's a really amazing interview on YouTube that they did together that shows you how each and every one of these insane pages was made. Because like when I first heard about it, I was like, oh, it's Bill Watterson wrote it and this other guy did the art, but it's so much more than that. Like Watterson would do these crazy paintings and then the guy would carve or make these things out of clay. Just it's absolutely glorious. You guys got to check that out. Bill Watterson's The Mystery, but you don't have to take my word for it. All right, let's go. Since we got everyone here, let's go down here to Steve. What you up to, Steve? You're working on some art there. You got a comic you're working on?
Hey, yeah. I'm from Denver, the Denver area. And so October is kind of my crazy month where everything piles up at the front end. And now that things have calmed down, I want to try and catch up. I've been trying to use those Kayfabe-tober prompts to sharpen up a little bit with my pen and ink. So I have my kid here at the playground, and that's what I was working on. See, that's the one I did for Saturday morning cartoons. So I'm sitting on the bench doodling while we still got just barely enough sunlight for the kiddo to run around. Then I'm gonna go to the library and try and find some reading material.
Dang, some Box Brown books.
Yeah, I was gonna say if they have the He-Man Effect, check it out, dude. I find Brian's books in the library all the time, so they definitely have a good library presence.
The kiddo gets cranky when I'm book shopping because I just get sucked in and take way too much time. But you better believe I'm gonna give you some investments.
Hell yeah! All right, Steve. Thanks so much, dude. Oh, where can we follow you or see your work?
Thanks, man. I've got 3 social media accounts actually. I got the Art of Stephen Ehrman, his Stephen. EHRMAN, and that's where I post a bunch of landscape paintings. And then Steve Ehrman, which is like all stuff for a middle grade graphic novel that I'm working on. And Rooster Blue, BLOO, is the Instagram account where I just put everything for fun. That's where I'm putting the kayfabe tober, the pen and ink stuff.
Cool.
Thank you, bro.
All right, man. Thank
I'll
you.
post them in the chat.
Okay, I just threw your Rooster Blue in there, and I put the Bill Watterson video in there as well if you want to check it out.
I saw that.
Oh, appreciate
shout
that.
out to Len. If you want to say hi, tell us where you're driving, who you're picking up. I'm just kidding.
Hey, what's up? Yeah, I'm Len Cody. I'm driving from work to the.
Perfect.
Yeah. I live in the Los Angeles area, Long Beach, California. And I'm a writer. I currently I work on a project right now where it's with a friend of mine from Chicago, where he takes like these after school programs of like urban youth, these kids that come up with these story ideas. And then I'm the writer, but we employ a bunch of artists, and they kind of help us develop these kids' ideas into like professionally published comic book stories. Been working on it for a few years now. One of the things that kind of drew me to the group is, I saw there was a cool community of comic artists and consumers of the medium. So it just seemed like a good place to hang out, especially since people might want to either work on this project or check it out later. We'll be doing some crowdfunding early next year. We're in the middle of a website redesign, so I'll drop all that stuff on my social media. You can find me with my name, Len Cody, on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all the usual places.
Sweet, man.
I'm also working on contributing to an anthology, one of the kayfabe kind of splinter groups out there, the splinter cells.
Yeah.
The name of the anthology is Infinite Echoes.
Right.
Mark Darden's thing. It's like it's like a heavy metal sci-fi kind of fantasy, sexy sci-fi kind of thing. So me and my buddy Johnny Golden, artist, are collaborating on something for that also.
Nice, dude. Hell yeah. Awesome. All right, cool. Great chatting with you, Len. I'm only over in Woodland Hills. Maybe we can cruise on down to the beach sometime or ride bike. I always ride my bike down in the Long Beach, Santa Monica area there.
Yeah, absolutely, Eli, man. Yeah, I would love to cross paths with you. It's hard to make friends in Los Angeles, I'll tell you that.
It is. Yeah. All right, dude. Thanks so much. All right, we'll head over to Rocco. What's up, brother? I know what you do, but not everyone else does.
Well, what maybe not everybody knows is that the latest Ghost Agents book hit the goal today. Kickstarting and trying so hard to make.
I saw that. Yeah,
we made it happen.
Congratulations.
Ghost Agent / Metropolis. Now we get the people who were waiting to see if it would be successful. The funny thing about Kickstarters, some people respond to please, please, please. Some people respond to get in with the in crowd. So now we're with the in crowd. This is your last chance to get the Ghost Agents Apocalyptico book in treasury size on the beautiful newsprints. After this, it will only be available if you can find me or Eli or any of the artists who are in this book that want to sell you their copies. This will be a trade paperback edition after this. We'll talk more about that in the months ahead. You can also currently get the Ghost Agents Crimson Reckoning book as part of the Kickstarter as well. Ghostagents.net is the easiest way to find out what I'm talking about. Eli is showing the 45 round per minute flexi disc, which features the Ghost Agents theme. There's also a few of these Ghost Agents Max Ullman action figures that are still available as part of this Kickstarter. This is your last chance to get that, at least from us, because that's going to be available from somebody else. And it's going to be considerably pricier than it is now. So if you guys have been waiting, wait no more. 7 days left, something like that. 5 of those figures available, and then it's ta-ta for you.
Sweet. All right, and since we're going around the horn before we get started here, Kevin Delgado just popped in. Another successful Kickstarter. I muted you there, but you can unmute.
Thanks, man. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm actually drawing you right now.
Hell yeah. Did your Kickstarter end or it just got fully funded?
It's fully funded. It's still going on until like Monday or Tuesday next week.
Nice, dude.
Nice.
Hell yeah.
I supported both of them.
Thank you, Manny. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah,
Thank you, Eli.
yeah.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks for everyone that backed it. Really appreciate it. Sorry, I'm a little under the weather right now.
It's all
You're good,
right.
bro.
Get above that weather, bro.
Yeah.
All right. So then we're back over to our guest of honor, Mr. Brian Box Brown. And we're going to start with some questions. I've got one to start off with, if you don't mind, just because I might get a little marinate on you here, marinate on a question here. But it seems like so much of what you do is like historical based and not autobiographical, but like, you know, as seen through your eyes throughout your time. So let's start at the beginning. Like, what was your childhood like? Did you grow up as this kind of like 80s comic book action figure guy? Was that you? And that's where this all started? Or a little bit about that.
I don't think I was any more like into this stuff than anybody else as a kid. Excuse me, as like a kid. Like we were all like, it was just like very much like the popular culture of when I grew up in my childhood. We were just like all into all these toys and stuff.
Absolutely.
Of course, I watched a lot of cartoons and read comic books and stuff, but I was also like, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, whatever, a kid.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what I did a lot of. But I think if you would have asked me when I was a little kid, like what I wanted to be when I grew up, I would have said cartoonist. But I probably would have meant like make cartoons. Like that's kind of like I wanted to be. Yeah. Once I found out what actually goes into animation, I decided I didn't really want to be an animator. But it was like at first I think it was, and this is like when I was a little kid, I like wanted to make cartoons because like I liked cartoons.
I mean, it's like exactly what kind of. Okay, so yeah, it's the cartoons that really like shape our childhood. Really, it's like, did you wake up super early to watch stuff?
My mom is always like, you're getting paid back now because my kids get up like so early. And she's like, you got up early. I was like, I remember being a little kid and just like, as soon as my eyes opened, I ran straight to the television, like, and I would watch so many stupid things. Cause like, I would put the TV on at like 5, 6 in the morning. It was like kind of like before cartoons were on. Like I would watch shows like there was a show called The New Zoo Review, which was like so strange if you look that up on YouTube. It's like these dressed up kind of like Barney characters, but there's like 2 real humans, and they had like a whole set, like a house, and it was wild. What? And there was like a bunch of other dumb shows like that I would watch, and but of course, like my favorite show was He-Man. And Muppet Babies I was super into also, but like there was no Muppet Babies like action figure. I mean, I guess there kind of was a little bit, but
maybe stuffed animals I can remember.
Yeah, it wasn't marketed the same way that He-Man. I mean, He-Man, the only point of the show was the toys. I mean, like there was no, from the beginning.
Is that the first show that you remember, like, you were watching TV and it was just like
the big thing with it that I remember is it was the first time I remember like being like, I must have been like 4 or 5 years old. I was like playing at a playground and my mom was like, we should go. And I was like, no, I want to like whatever, keep playing. And she's like, we don't go now, we're gonna miss He-Man. And I was like, beeline it to the car. Like that was like I remember the first like time I like the concept you could miss the show.
Yeah.
Like I just remember the first time feeling that.
FOMO before it was a thing,
Yeah. I was like, what? And that was like, now it wouldn't matter at all. You just like would put on the new episode. I'd watch it in the car. Like it wouldn't even
Do you feel like there's a kind of a psychology to that? Like that's something I think about a lot, is that, you know, I never want to be like, kids these days, but it seems like the part of the reason that I think that attention spans are so sparse at this point is that one never needs to really truly pay close attention to anything. You always can watch it later, rewind it.
Yeah.
Else. When we were
I think
kids,
that has,
like UHF
yeah.
television was like a third parent in my house, and a lot of it was that I always had to be watching it to see what's happening.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that have changed with the new technology, in the sense that, like, I talk about this in the book. Like, okay, so if you were a kid at my age, whatever, you'd see, let's say you saw Return of the Jedi in the theater. Maybe you saw it twice. Like, of course there are kids that saw like those movies a million times in the theater, but like, you'd see it like once, then maybe again later, years later on VHS or something, or when it was on TV once or whatever. But so when you're playing Return of the Jedi, you're kind of like, you're playing out the movie, but also making shit up, and like you don't have an exact memory of this one movie that you saw whenever, and you're kind of like talking about it, making stuff up, and it's more creative play. And now that kids can watch stuff over and over again, they can be like, no, that's not what he said. This is what he says, and like play it. Like it's like they're following the script more. And so I think, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to make too many predictions or whatever, but like I feel like there could be some kind of like creativity gap that's going to catch up to us at some point.
Yeah. And I think you're really right about this. I loved your book, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
And these toys, these specific toys and this sort of thing in general is something that I think about a lot and sort of is perpetually kind of on my mind. When you go to, I don't know if you've ever had the great sociological experiment that is going to a G.I. Joe convention that features both like the old Joe toys and the newer ones. It's very interesting to see how the way that the baby boomers that had the 12-inch Joes, they all sort of are like, my guy, I used to pretend that he was a fireman.
Oh, yeah.
It was very much what they could project upon it, right?
Right.
Whereas the people that are more our age, I'm 45, I think you're probably kind of around there.
Yeah.
Are more very
Alive with new comic. I'm sorry.
Are very much like, no, this is the Baroness. This is what the Baroness does.
Right.
This
That's
is what
she said.
Dexter does.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
like the way that
sure.
it was sort of
Presented on the
film,
TV show. Yeah.
precisely the comic or whatever. And it really sort of changed the way that the imaginations sort of develop, or in some cases don't, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think about this a lot too. So like my dad, think about like my dad's age guys, like he like loves like cowboy stuff. Like that's like the stuff that he watched when he was, you know what I mean? Like that's his thing, like all the cowboy movies and all that. John Wayne or is that the movie? Yeah, John Wayne. So but like his generation isn't like I'm crazy obsessed in the same way that we were. Like, sure, they made the Lone Ranger into a movie, and like no one flipped out about it. Like, you know what I mean? Like it just, and it was like kind of like a hit. You know, they would have like cowboy movies that would be like, you know, they were pretty uncritically interested in cowboy movies. You know, in that generation, it lasted forever. Like you can always do some nostalgic cowboy shit. My dad's like, oh, cowboy. Like there's some show that he watches now that's like a cowboy show that's like super popular on like A&E or something. I forget
Like
what
Yellowstone.
Yeah, Yellowstone. That's like his favorite show. You know,
Right. And it's you hit upon it a lot in the book, is that so much of it is that, you know, we all sort of have OCD to some degree. Something that kind of blew me away, because you couldn't have known this, but this particular part of this book, the back cover without the thing where the kid is obsessed with the arm. I was obsessed with the arm, because I had the deal where my He-Man's arm, I played with it so much that it got lazy. and my dad put a little piece of paper from the newspaper.
Oh,
That's a piece of
wow.
newspaper from like 1984 that's been with me all this time, because this thing that was made in a factory in Taiwan or wherever has become like a part of family lore. So like when I
Yeah.
look at that, it's like
crazy.
I think about my father's love, and sort of there's so many things that kind of get captured in with me.
When I drew that, that is something that I would think it's such a weird tactile experience. I always think about like taking the arms off of them, because like that was like a feature of the toy, was you can rip their fucking arms off. And you can switch them. I remember switching the arms, but I'd always lose the arms. And then like
Feature,
even
not a
now,
bug, as they
yeah,
say.
yeah. Even now, like when you go, if you see them at like a thrift store or something, there'll be guys missing arms and stuff like that. And so it's just like thinking about like I used to bite the fingers, and I like
Yeah.
have this like
My
remembrance.
beast man has some screwy fingers as a result.
Right, they're like flat. My dad still's like, you still bite the fingers off, like so it's like this weird tactile thing.
Yeah.
So like that's like and that's from so deep in my childhood. Like we're talking now, like when I would chew on shit. So I was like 5 or something.
Yeah,
And
like literally my first obsession was Masters of the Universe. It really was.
Yeah,
But
it's
I'm lucky enough
very
to still have
true.
my dad with me, and I sent him just a picture of this just to see what he would say. And he was like, "You were really upset about that arm." We're talking about something that happened 40 years ago. You know,
Yeah.
it's like that
It's
was a
crazy.
part of
Well, I
of
think
who I
it's
was.
funny that you brought up the GI Joe convention, because I think a lot of the coming up with the idea of this, so people are like, how long did you research this? Like, how long did this take you? And I'm like you said, I've been like researching this book for 40 something years, but
Right.
I think like the first kernel of me thinking, oh, this could be a book, was being at, I from going to comic conventions, there's always like a vintage toy contingent at the shows, so it was right after Andre came out. They were sending me to like all these big shows, and I'd have to do like a few things throughout the day, and then I had time off mostly, but I couldn't really leave because I'd have like an event later in the day, so I'd like hang out, and get look at the whole convention or whatever. But I'd find myself at these vintage toy like booths buying. I started buying Muscle, was the first
Oh.
thing I started buying again,
Oh man.
and Battle Beasts, right? Like this.
Yeah.
I like collecting small things because they take up a small amount of room. Like all my Battle Beasts are in like a ball like this big, whatever.
Takes up less space. Space
Yeah,
is always
exactly.
a concern for
Space has
frequent
become an issue as I get older.
absolutely.
So I started collecting all this stuff, and then I was like, oh, there's a toy convention like 20 minutes from my house this weekend. And I was like, let's go check it out. I brought my son, he was like 2 or 3. And it was not just G.I. Joe, but like all vintage toys or whatever. And it was packed, like fucking absolutely mobbed with people just like selling, like making money hand over fist on all these old toys and stuff. And I was just like, these guys are all like benefiting from the heavy doses of commercials that we watched for, it's still paying dividends. And like it's a whole fucking market still. Like that's how effective that advertising was. And so that was, I think, the moments where I was like, oh, this is the book. So I think like for a while I was like, I wanted to write about He-Man, but I was like, what's the story? I like He-Man. Great story. Like,
Well, I mean,
and-
there's just so much to that. And really something I think about a lot too is that Masters of the Universe, I sort of think of as being the last toy line that did not have a cartoon, because it initially didn't.
yeah.
And then it was the first one that did. And then since then, the deal has been, you got to have some sort of tie-in,
Oh yeah.
Fisher Price Adventure People, something like that. Never happens again.
Yeah, no, it's funny. There's a show now, right? That is, I think it's actually an awesome show for kids. It's called Corey Carson, and it's on like Netflix. But it's made it's freaking made by a toy company called VTech, which made like little
wow.
kids toys,
Yeah,
right?
which are
And then,
like
so then,
Walmart toys.
right. And so then they were like, oh, we'll make this cartoon show to market our toys, right? So then it somehow through that process, the cartoon show is amazing. The toys are terrible
Right.
somehow. Like Netflix is just like, all right, we got to make this commercial cartoon, but we'll hire our best people and make it the best show. And yet the toys are so stupid. Like I won't
Very
even
interesting
buy
how
them.
that works. I now think of, because I remember vividly, because these things have always been with me. When the cartoon first came out, it was my first year of kindergarten. I was that age. So I had no defense from the commercial onslaught.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
And I think of it now as being my first episode 1 moment where I did not like the cartoon, but there
Yeah.
was no way I couldn't like the cartoon.
Yeah.
He was so tied to my sense of identity, where it's like, so this guy's got a secret identity now. He wears purple tights. That's not what the attack track looks like. Like I can remember it so vividly. And
Yeah,
it was
that's funny
years
because
later that it was like,
yeah, because it was just the comic books at first.
right, the little booklets, like not even the comics, but like the story.
Yeah, just the mini comics.
Alfredo Alcala, Dan Glut.
Yeah, which were amazing. Those little books.
To me, that was like the peak, and that was when it was still, the stories, as you observed in your book.
Yeah.
I see. It's one of those deals where it's like, this is something I'm so obsessed with that when I got your book, or I got to look at your book, the first thing I did was go to the pages about before the cartoon to see if you knew about that and what you said about it.
Yeah,
and I
drew
decided
those
whether or not I was going to buy this book based on the fact that you did.
I drew those little mini comics. That was like the funnest page to work on.
Right. I devoured your book. I meant to read it over several days. It was like one long night. I couldn't. I mean, it was just like
the
you're killing
thing
me softly.
I think that killed me making it though was figuring out that like it removes the magic away from it. It takes the magic away a little bit, because it's like, it's not like this thing they were like, oh, I think going into it I thought this way. I was like, oh, Reagan was just like, yeah, we're gonna deregulate everything, and then they were like, oh, we can do this now, cool. Oh, we're gonna make a TV show based on our toy. But like that's like not it at all. It's like, yeah, no, the people that wanted to make He-Man spent many years lobbying to do this exact thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like it was Reagan's idea. Like,
Right.
oh, we're gonna deregulate the TV, and then
I'm gonna get those kids. Yeah, no, he
he's
wasn't
this evil. It was just very funny how you go in. So
you're not wrong about that. And it's funny because I was having I don't know if I call it a debate, but there was somebody I was interacting with last night who couldn't make it today. And we were sort of going back and forth on your book. And his feeling was that your book was maybe more cynical than he would have liked. And I said, and this guy is like a huge Masters of the Universe fan, whatever. I said, this is the right amount of medicine for you. Like, you need to reckon with this. And here's where
go ahead.
Yeah, that's true. But here's where I'll challenge you on you thinking that it got darker, ruined it for anybody. I feel like once we sort of have an understanding of what it is, that it was sold to us, and it was very, you see that Toys That Made Us episode, and the guy was like their pea brains and all that sort of stuff. There's still something to it. Once you make peace with the fact that it was all marketing, that it was still beautiful, right? My father's love is symbolic right here.
Right. The
concept blood on the knife.
I say this all the time. I'm like, well, what are you gonna do? Be like, I'm not gonna feel nostalgia. Like, these are the dangers of nostalgia. But then what are you gonna do? Be like, I'm not gonna ever feel nostalgia. Like, you're taking away like one of the most beautiful like emotions that in a way like drives so much of like our decision making and drives us to be human.
Right.
It's not that it's a beautiful thing. You know what I mean? It's an amazing emotion that I think serves some sort of evolutionary purpose. So
beyond anything that could have been.
Right. It's just that these guys have harnessed it, and that doesn't take away from the fact that like it still happened to like it still happens. Like we still have the nostalgia. Like you know what I mean? It would be like stupid to be like, I'm not gonna I'm not going to even indulge in this at all because the marketing.
Well, and dude, yeah, I mean, and a part of it too is like what you were saying, like you're going back and you're buying your old toys again. Like
Yeah.
if that was something that like your grandpa, chiseled out of wood, you just couldn't get it back again. But there's sort of this way that we sort of had this communal experience about it.
One of the first things I got when I started getting vintage toys again was the first thing before I bought, I think, any toys was I bought a 1986 Sears Wish Book catalog, right?
Awesome.
And so it was like $50 too. It's like this.
I'd pay twice that.
Right, like that was the
remember
cheapest one, and it's not good shape. So which is crazy to me because every house had like hundreds of these things. Like it was mailed to us for free, a huge phone book thing.
But
But
who
just
kept
everybody threw them away. Yeah.
Right. Precisely.
And they were the greatest thing. It was like Amazon in a catalog.
Yeah.
And, but you didn't have Amazon, so like the only place you could like see the toys, like, and it had all of them, like, so
Every kind.
catalog was great to flip through and everything. But as I was flipping through it, I'm like, this is actually a fucking functioning catalog. It's just I'm not calling Sears. I'm just going to eBay. But
good point.
I'm still buying
It still works.
it's
All the
still
20
like-
years later, it's still doing the job.
Well, and
Yes,
listen,
exactly.
man, I work in marketing today. I don't work for large companies. I work for small local businesses. And basically, I like to think that I'm doing like somewhat evil work for good purposes. Like, somebody opens a floral shop, or, somebody wants to try to become an event coordinator and they're not particularly good at advertising themselves. I help them with that. And it's all using stuff that was part of me that was intrinsically, that I noticed it was paying attention to as a child before I fully knew what it was. I always talk about how, the Campbell soup can, Andy Warhol. Well, he would always, when you asked him about it, why'd you do the paintings of the cans? He would always be like, I don't know. I just, it could be anything. After he died, his next oldest brother told a story of how when their mother was in the hospital because she had cancer, she was away for like a month and a half. And it became this kid's job to take care of Andy, like a 12-year-old was looking after an 8-year-old.
Right.
And dinner every night was a can of Campbell soup and a sandwich.
Yeah.
So
So I mean, it's
beautiful.
Rosebud, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like this is
Precisely. Don't tell me it is. And I if you ever feel like somehow your work is too strong on that, or is somehow gives people a sense that it's too cynical, please don't, because people who don't know this need to know it, and they need to reckon with it. They don't need to stop loving Masters of the Universe. I never will, but they need to understand what this was.
It was important to me that it was about He-Man in a way, even though He-Man's not really in the book that much. Like people read it, they're like, this isn't really even about He-Man. He's hardly in it. Because He-Man doesn't show up to like page like 140 or something like that.
Yeah.
But to me, it's about He-Man because He-Man is my Rosebud. You know what I mean?
You got to get all the way there to get to that.
Yeah, and it does start like 100 years before He-Man.
Yeah, I love that you had that full ramp up.
More than that, I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
I love your book. Thanks so much for talking to me and letting me talk at you.
Oh, thank you.
I love Andy Kaufman. I'm also a fan of Andre the Giant. I have not yet read those books. I'm going to remedy that in the near future.
Cool.
But thank you so much for this. I cannot tell you how much I like it. I've recommended it to many, many people. And I have it on a table right over here, right next to all my childhood Masters of the Universe toys, which might be my very most prized possessions. So thank you so much.
That's really nice to hear. Thank
You're
you so
tremendous. Do not slow down. I'm going to buy everything you made in time. And you're a smart guy, Box Brown. You did a good job.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right, that's the podcast, everyone. Thanks so much. No, I'm just kidding. We do have a question in the chat here that's from Chris Pierce from Comic Tropes. He stopped by for a second. He said he's at work right now. I can't stay very long, but he loved Box's Andre and Tetris book And he was just wondering, and we were kind of wondering this before as well, like, did you see the movie adaptation of the Tetris book? Did you get any reach out to that at all, or?
So I didn't, when I heard that it was coming out, and I was like, well, I guess we're not making a movie about my book now because they're making this other Tetris movie. So I was like, whatever.
Yeah.
So I was a little bit bitter, I guess, about it. So,
Yeah.
but then I was like, oh, maybe it'll be like a huge hit movie, and then everybody will be like, oh, well, it'll be like such a huge hit that everybody will get Tetris fever again and go buy my book anyway. So, but anyway, so then it comes out, and everybody, it was kind of like not very well received, and I didn't want to.
Oh, and it was only
so,
on Apple TV, right? It didn't even.
Yeah, it was on Apple TV.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to watch it. Like I felt like I was gonna, like, it was gonna make me mad or something. But then I saw that this dude is that had a book that came out about Tetris around the time my book came out, is actually suing the movie and Apple TV for like $5 million for lifting from his book. And so I was like, well, I better watch this movie, see if they lifted anything from my book. Maybe I could get some of this 450 million or whatever it is, 4.5 million. But anyway, so I watched some of it, and I actually did think some parts in the beginning did lift it a little bit from my book, but then there was a large part in the middle that was not anything like my book, and then I didn't finish watching it because I thought it sucked kind of.
Dang. I didn't come at it with any of those biases. I actually thought it was super awesome. I hadn't
Oh, really?
read the book at that point, but
Yeah,
listen,
no, I should watch the rest of it. I mean, the real story is amazing and crazy.
yeah.
I mean, it's just like an amazing story that has, like, it's very specific to the time and place
Yeah.
when it happened, and like maybe couldn't have happened with any other video game because it was so it transcended culture.
Yeah.
Like we play Japanese video games and stuff, and stuff gets Americanized and localized and everything, but Tetris, like, just didn't have to do any of that. It was just like instantly any culture, anybody picks it up and just knows intrinsically like how to play, and it's fascinating right away.
And that so much money was dealt with and handed back and forth between US and Russia, and like,
And Russia didn't really know what they were. I mean, they really didn't. They were so new to capitalism and didn't really know exactly what they had or what they were doing. They just knew somebody else wanted it.
yeah. So crazy. Like, because for me, when I think of Tetris, I just think of my mom like peacefully sitting at the computer.
Right.
Like, she's not a gamer, but she was like, all she did is play Tetris, and that shit.
Right. So
but
I talk about that in my book too, about how, like, this was one of the first video games where parents, like in the Nintendo era, when these kids were just like so into Nintendo, and like parents kind of didn't really get it, that they picked up this game and were like, oh, I fully understand what my child what's going on with my kid right now.
Yeah.
Because like they were so obsessed with Tetris on their own. Like you said, your mom would play it. My mom, like, my dad played it, my nana played it, like my wife's mom played it. She would like hide in the bathroom playing Tetris and be like, where's mom? Where's Tetris? Where's Game Boy?
that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's just we used to play it. I used to play it at work. I mean, so much Tetris I played in my life.
Yeah. It's just amazing how you take these very advanced or topics that have so many ins and outs, a lot of ins, a lot of outs, and you draw them simply, and you get the wordage across in such a simple way that anyone can just instantly grasp onto it. There's no like pretext, there's no preconceived notions of you got to be so tall to enter or whatever. It's just like, just dive right in.
I always say that like when comics are really good at conveying really actually important information in a very short, small space, right?
Yeah.
So like when you're on a plane and they have the like little pamphlet in the seat in front of you that tells you what to do in case of a plane crash.
Yeah.
it's basically like a comic. It's like 1, 2, 3,
Yeah,
4,
that's
5,
true.
6,
Wow,
7,
yeah,
do this
you're right.
thing. And that's like the most important information. You need everybody to need it, to know it so fast. So I talk about my comics that I do now, my comic strip Legalization Nation. I always think of that. I'm like, this isn't literally an emergency situation. What's going on in cannabis, and we need to, explain all these very complicated instructions. And comics are like really good at that. Like, it's just like, it helps me personally. I think why I was drawn to comics, because it helped me to understand and read and be able to get through, like, chunks down reading for
It really
for you.
does. It takes
Yeah.
it takes like half the work out. It's
Yeah.
funny, I listen to the Dana Carvey, David Spade podcast all the time. And they say that, like, they know a good SNL sketch when it's funny with the sound off, and that kind of like goes with the comics too. If it's like, if it works without the words,
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
then it's a simple and good.
It's funny because, like, before I started making comics, I'd try to write like a novel, and I couldn't get there. Couldn't get from beginning to end without drawing it. I need the drawing part.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
All right, man. Let's go over to Benny Gomez, the other co-host here, and he's gonna get some cues out for you to A.
Okay.
I wanted to roll it back a bit. At the beginning when we started, you said that initially you wanted to be an animator, but then you realized what animation was, and then you wanted to segue into comics. So, what comics were you reading, and like, were there any specific titles that like were a big influence? And then, second question, most of your work seems to be like this nonfiction, almost documentary. Like, was that from the get-go what you wanted to do, or did you organically arrive at that kind of style of storytelling?
So let me say my early influences were so I always read the newspaper comics, Calvin and Hobbes, and like I loved Family Circus even when I was a little kid.
Same.
And then when I got into high school, I started reading, and I read superhero comics in X-Men and stuff. And when I got into high school, I started reading Life in Hell, like the Matt Groening books.
Yeah.
I had like so many of those because like Simpsons was so popular, like they had all these books out now, and they were so funny to me. Like, some of those books, like, I would like pee my pants, like, laughing so hard at like how funny it was. Like, it was so like subversive, and like I just thought it was so good.
Yeah, and actually, now you mentioned it, I can see a Matt Groening influence.
Yeah, it definitely like was like a thing I was doing for a minute. And then what was the second question?
I mean, as far as I remember, Andre was your first big work.
Yeah.
You seem to be gravitating toward like these nonfiction, like almost documentaries.
I think this was it started early on because when I got into comics, everybody was doing autobiographical stuff, and so I was doing autobio for a while, and I think that I got bored doing comics about my own life. So I was just like, there's not that much going on here, really, and wanted to do comics about the stuff that I was like more interested in. And so at the time I was like studying religion, like different types of religions and stuff, and so I started making comics about religion for a little while, and then it went from there to Andre the Giant. Then I kind of got into the niche a little bit. I did a book of sci-fi comics, and I have done a bunch of fiction stuff in the past. I'm actually working on a fiction book right now. Slowly, but yeah, I'm like into documentary film, and so like a lot of these comics I think of as like little documentary movies.
I mean, yeah, like I when I read your stuff, I mean, I get like I'm a big documentary fan too. Like I think that a good documentary will make a subject that you might not even be interested at the beginning like very engaging. I mean, your books are doubly because you always cover things that I like, and you just make them even more engaging. But I've seen tons of documentary where I wouldn't think I'd be interested
you'd be
in
like,
the
what's
subject.
this? Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're hooked. So would you say that, like, I mean, Like, are there any documentaries that have been a big influence on you, or because like for instance, like Ken Burns is someone that makes
Oh yeah,
almost anything
love Ken
interesting, you
Burns.
know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love Ken Burns. I recently watched the Ken Burns Holocaust documentary. I thought was really good, the most recent one.
Yeah.
Influential. So there's a documentary series called First Person, and it's like 10 episodes or something like that with Errol Morris, the director.
Yeah, I know
And
who he is. Yeah.
you know who you're talking about, and he interviews, like you were saying here, all the people that he interviews, and he's done like movies like this before, where it's like you don't know who his subject is. It's just like some regular, normal person that he's interviewing, but they have this extraordinary like story to tell. And that's like what the First Person series was. Like it's all these people that you just see, like, you know, it's not that they're like some famous actor or did some, you know, some person that you'd know for their fame. They're just like an everyday person walking on the street that had some sort of crazy experience. Like one guy landed a plane, like landed like a malfunctioning plane, and like something like 6 people died or something like that. But the way it should have been everyone died, but the guy somehow was able to land the plane. And he tells this crazy story about landing a malfunctioning plane, and like you would never know who this guy was. Like there's just nothing. But like this interview with him was fucking incredible. And it's all it is really a first person interview, but you know, he makes it into a film somehow using footage and diagrams of the plane and all this stuff.
Yeah. I'm looking this up now. So
Yeah, some of it's on YouTube, I know.
Yeah. I mean, that's it for now. I'm probably gonna have a few more questions, but I'll give it up to anyone else that might have any questions for you.
All right, cool. Let's see, Kev, you got anything this time, or we can keep going? You good? All right, he's drawing. So let's see. You keep working and documenting these different like pivotal characters in your life. You've done like wrestling, comedy. We've got toys. Is there a
video games? Yeah.
Yeah, video games. Yeah. So is there a sector of your of media that you haven't got to attack yet?
I don't know. Probably. I always I never really know what's actually brewing, kind of like in there, until it ends up coming out. I want to talk about wrestling more always. Like I often want to like go back to wrestling because it's just like so there's I see so many things like through the lens of pro wrestling, that like I feel like it relates so much to everything. And like I feel like there's like a book in me that's like Chicken Soup for the Soul, but it's pro wrestling or something like that. Like
Suplex for the soul. Chicken.
yeah, suplex for the soul. There you go.
What about like music? What kind of music do you listen to? And then would there be like a band that
yeah, so I love like the Kinks and David Bowie and stuff. Trying to think what I've listened to. Oh, this month I've been listening to a lot of Rocky Erickson because he has all these songs about like Halloween, like demons and like zombies and stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, the fall's all like I will get like deep. Like I almost did a book like about Christmas because I get so like into Christmas also.
Interesting.
Yeah, like the I looked and actually for the last like 3 years I've pitched a book about Christmas around Christmas time where I'm like, I should make a book about this. This would be a cool book.
Huh. About like the origins and
yeah, like the origins of Christmas and like I have a pitch I can probably pull up actually. And like what the fuck the point of it is, like for real.
I was thinking about the Easter Bunny too. What's his deal?
All the stuff is like both pagan and Christian. It's like, yeah, I don't know. So yeah, maybe something like that one day.
Interesting. Do you feel like the music kind of doc comic. Is there a word for that? Adomic?
Oh, I sometimes call them documentary comics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess music ones have been done a lot. There's been a few Bowie ones, and there's Grateful Dead ones, and there's everyone, I guess.
Oh, my Christmas comic is about how I'm looking at the pitch now. It was about how it was always about selling shit, even way back in the day.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
it
wow.
was just that's the entire purpose of the holiday from the beginning.
Similar angle to the He-Man book. In a way,
Yeah, I
right?
think it was. Let's see. Let me see when I was working on that.
I mean,
Probably, like,
Christmas is
last-
also wrapped up in nostalgia for a lot of us. I mean, like that, you know,
Oh yeah,
like
very.
yeah,
It's
I get
very
happier in the fall and Christmas time because I
know.
know I'm nostalgic for like Halloween and
I
you know,
know.
and like
The whole fall is like that. It's crazy. It's like you
yeah,
get this Halloween thing, and then first it's back to school. Like that. I don't even,
yeah.
my
Getting your
kids are at
Trapper
school.
Keeper at the beginning
Yeah,
of the
but like
year,
somehow
you know?
that's already something. Like back to school, I'm like, oh yeah, back to school, and then Halloween, and then the Thanksgiving thing. But by Thanksgiving, by like halfway to Thanksgiving, it's just becomes Christmas. I already saw a bunch of Christmas commercials watching baseball yesterday. There was Christmas commercials.
Yeah,
You
there's
guys
stuff in
remember
the
that
stores already too.
TV show
Yeah.
TV Funhouse that was on Comedy Central? It was
Oh
like
yeah, I actually watched that last week.
Yeah. Do you remember the Christmas
The
episode?
Christmas episode, yeah.
It's insane. They beat the
Yeah,
guy
yes.
up, the host, and tap his spine for his
Yeah.
pure Christmas
Turn
spirit.
it
And
into like Christmas
inject
spirit
it.
into like cocaine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I
Such
was
a funny-
watching that because there's do you guys know the cartoonist Michael Kupperman?
Oh, no, no. Was he on that? Did
no.
he do the?
He did he did a bunch of comics like for Fantagraphics a few years ago, and he's like a really funny cartoonist. But he also wrote a few of the cartoons for TV Funhouse, and I was like talking to him about this one. This really stupid. I mean, it's like hilarious, but it's so.
They had the one cartoon, the baby, the immigrant, and the guy on
the
mushrooms.
guy on mushrooms. Yeah. It was
I
like people
second
that
the
can't.
motion for Kupperman. That it is fantastic.
Yeah, he did this cartoon for that where it's like a guy goes into a cave and he like finds a wizard in the cave, and the wizard teaches him a magic word, and the word is screwpaw. But like it doesn't do anything. It's like it's just very funny. Like absurd
Everyone
shit.
present here would love Michael Kupperman. He's
Yeah, and
Absurdist
if you're
fascist.
listening, the TV Funhouse is available on the Internet Archive, the whole series.
Oh wow,
Awesome.
you've given me a bunch of stuff to look into.
Oh, that's really. I used to watch that really late at night.
Oh,
But-
man.
'cause-
We were watching
it-
it live too.
Yeah, it came on at like midnight on Sundays.
That was
And
perfect.
like, it was like up all night watching that, and then the critic would come on. It was like those two shows.
Yes. We
I
were
love
in
the
high
Critters, yeah.
school. We would be doing bong rips or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the best.
Yeah.
All right, back to you, Manny. What you got?
Actually, I remember what I wanted to ask you. Like, what's your like creative process? Like for instance, for He-Man, like when you decided you were gonna do the book, like, you know, to me it seems like you can't really write a traditional like script or like page breakdown like a lot of comic book writers might, you know, start with. So like like, what's your approach? Do you start with the research? Does the research
Usually I like write a summary.
okay,
That's like
like a thesis almost? Like
kind of. It'll be like 10 pages, let's say, maximum. Maybe even like 5 pages for the publisher. And that kind of just becomes like the outline that I follow. And then I
okay.
kind of, once I start getting going, I just kind of know where I'm headed, and I kind of follow it just chronologically.
Right.
So I like know.
Yeah, like most documentaries do, you know, like I
Yeah.
mean,
So I can know where I'm going. But yeah, I don't ever really write out a full script, or I also like to leave myself leeway to kind of do what I want to do like that day. I
do you
never
thumbnail or layout, you know?
I'll thumbnail right before I draw usually.
Okay.
And then I'm working on a fiction book now, and like I'll thumbnail like 5 pages at a time and then draw them and then thumbnail 5 pages. And the thumbnails are like, yeah, that's what they look like.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
They're like super, there's not much to them. You can barely even like,
Yeah, but you're getting what you want on the
but it's
page.
just whatever my like little notes about the next few pages, basically. So I like think of it as, I started doing it this way with the Andy Kaufman book because I was like, you know, Andy Kaufman like improv, like with the Tetris book and the Andre the Giant book, I like made a rough draft completely before I started, and then midway through the book, I just kind of felt like a factory that I'm just like, oh, I'm taking the, what am I doing now? Okay, it got kind of like boring, I guess. So when I was doing the Andy Kaufman book, I was like, he was all like improv, like he just kind of like went out there and did, as long as he was in character, it didn't matter, you know. So I kind of did that whole book like improv in a way, like just kind of have an idea where I wanted to go and then just doing every page that day. And so I kind of work like that a little bit. Like if people were like, if I got some sort of comics academic professor was like, saw my process to be like, that's not how you do it. You know,
But I mean, is there a way? Is there a set way to do it? I think
I don't know.
Like it's like
there's
yeah,
certain
you know,
there's certain things if I was like, if I like penciled every page out like in a batch, like penciled the whole thing all at once, it would look more consistent probably. But then it's like it might not get done because I don't think it's too boring to do it that way. Like it only has to get, it has to get done the way it gets done. You know?
yeah, it's very organic, I guess. Like
Yeah. It just has to keep, because you have to like keep your enthusiasm up for like a whole project. And like in the beginning of it, depending on how long the project is, if it's like 20 pages, you can usually keep your enthusiasm the whole thing. But it's like a big long book. At some point, you're going to be like, all right, you know, you're in the middle of the book. It's like, all right, what's the next thing? It's like you lose your enthusiasm. And so like anything you can do, like these little tricks, like improv or whatever. And I have like little, there's a million Easter eggs also in the book that like people may or may not even pick up on that are there like just for my own personal like amusement, basically. Like it's like all these little things just to keep myself enthusiastic about the project, and like these little goofy things to like make sure I don't get bored with the things. Like if you get bored with the project, it starts like to breathe through into the project. The reader will be bored.
Did you find like getting into method a little bit with the Andy Kaufman thing, like how Jim Carrey did and all that? You were
No.
like,
Well, I was, after doing that book, I was like, Jim Carrey's nuts, man. Like, I mean, because like I didn't think that Jim really, listen, if Jim is listening right now,
yeah,
you're very, very talented guy, and like he did a great job performing as Andy Kaufman. But I also think that he did his own thing, to do that. And in his mind, he was doing what Andy Kaufman would do, but really he's just doing like what Jim would do. Like I didn't know Andy Kaufman at all. Like, obviously, like never met him or anything.
Sure.
But from following his work and talking to his family and stuff, like I just felt like there was something missing from that, where it was not quite. There's like a warmth actually to Andy.
Yeah.
That like wasn't there.
Did you ever there was, you know, when Jerry Lawler came to the set, and you know, he played himself in that movie like a lot of people did. And he tried to like engage with Lawler the way that he would have, that Kaufman would have on TV.
Right.
And Lawler was like, you know, I knew Andy. We were friends.
Yeah.
I brought him into Memphis. Like I could tell you a lot of things about Andy that you don't know. And that was the moment that I sort of lost respect for that method.
Yeah, like he wasn't interested in.
That was the moment that I
Somebody's watching it on YouTube. Or
He
you
like,
watching it? Sorry, go ahead, Box or Brian.
he like wasn't interested in hearing about the real Andy. He like already had this
Yeah.
preconceived like idea in his mind. Meanwhile, Lawler, like his idea was like what everybody saw on TV. But meanwhile, Lawler had like this personal relationship with the guy,
Yeah.
taught him how to do the stuff, like, and Andy treated him with like total utmost respect, like off camera.
Right. Yeah, loved him. Loved him. I mean,
Yeah.
it was Lawler who taught him how to take a bump.
Everything. He did everything for him. Like it was, and Andy was good at it, and he brought a lot of eyes to Memphis and stuff like that. And the thing that was on David Letterman was probably the moment that pro wrestling looked the realest in front of the most people, like ever.
Yeah.
Like if you ever bring up Andy Kaufman to somebody of that generation, they're like, "Oh, that thing with the wrestler was real." Like they still like 100% buy into that.
People who thought they were way too smart for wrestling, 100% were marks.
Yep.
For what
Totally.
happened.
Everyone bought it. Everybody bought it. And it's funny. The ironic thing about it is that originally Andy was wanted to do this with WWE, but the dad, Vince Sr., and it was the prevailing notion at the time, not just Vince Sr., but everybody kind of thought that having a celebrity in the ring cheapens the wrestling product and makes it look less real.
Right.
And meanwhile, here's the thing that they did, made it seem like the most real thing that ever happened in wrestling. Like it made wrestling it made Jerry Lawler into a household name as well.
Yeah, I mean, probably kept Memphis going for a few more years than it.
Oh yeah, and I always think that it was so sad that Andy died, because if he didn't die, I have no reason to think that they wouldn't have had Andy and Jerry Lawler at WrestleMania 1.
I mean, totally different world. It's a
it
totally
would have been
different world.
it would have been so different. It would have been Andy and Hogan probably,
Yeah,
and Roddy Piper, and Jerry the King Lawler at WrestleMania 1.
yeah. Just plug him in for Jimmy Hart, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm lucky enough to have grown up here in Louisville and still live here today, and was able to grow up watching the Memphis territory programming.
Oh my God, that's crazy. They put on a really good TV show too. Memphis was
Fucking fire, dude.
yeah, it was really good shit. Like the studio shows, like there's a really great, you can see it on YouTube, I'm sure, where Hulk Hogan arm wrestles Andre the Giant at the Memphis TV studio show, and they're like in plain clothes, and it's like badass as hell.
Yeah. You ever seen the one where Adam West comes on as Batman?
No.
Oh, it's the best thing on YouTube.
That was
Adam West, Jerry Lawler. Yeah. It's so wonderful.
Lawler was really, really. I met Lawler one time at an airport, but Lawler was a really, really creative dude.
And he had so much to do with all of
that.
So
much.
He was the people's champion in a way that The Rock could never be in this region. I mean,
for sure,
when Lawler would come around, it's like, I mean, he was, and in some ways still is, like a folk hero. It's really
amazing. Yeah. It's really, really, really the Jerry Lawler story is nuts. The crazy part of it, though, that every time I start talking about Jerry Lawler, is I can never not talk about how he has a checkered past, let's say.
Yeah, right. That happened here, by the way.
Oh, really? In Louisville?
The thing that happened in Louisville.
Yeah. And that's just the one thing, which is pretty bad.
The thing we know about.
Yeah. Right. But anyhow,
I just pulled up that arm wrestling match. It looks insane.
It's cool.
See if you can find the Adam West with Jerry Lawler, because
they did crazy stuff in Memphis, man. Like they would have
Spider-Man, Freddy Krueger, Jason Bourne, like no intellectual property rights.
They would just do anything because it was like they had a TV. It's crazy. Yeah. This is all going on like while Jerry Lawler is on Raw every Monday. There's like this
as a totally different character.
This totally insane other thing going on just in Memphis.
Yeah. I got to go to OVW had a pay-per-view on Saturday, and I'm sure you know about the Netflix show,
the TV show. Yeah,
which is just a huge shot of adrenaline in the arm of that thing. It was sold out crowd.
Wow.
Probably the most raucous crowd per capita that I've ever been a part of, because that place only holds maybe 100 people, 120 people tops.
Oh,
And
it was absolutely packed.
it was as loud as like the inside of a jet engine. It was so loud. I mean, there's no more pure there's no pure entertainment than pro wrestling. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, it is. It's so great.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Hell yeah. All right, man, you got any more cues? Oh, Manny, can you hear me? Guess not. You can hear me, Manny? I was asking if you got any more questions. Okay, he's working on it. I found these videos. They look insane. Kev, do you got another question you want to hit? Or a question? Or are you just chilling? Word, man. All right. Then unless you guys want to. I found these videos. They look insane. Kev, do you got any?
There we go. I don't know.
So you got to watch the Hogan versus Andre the Giant arm wrestling just to see what they're wearing. Like,
All right, let's do it. We could do a live. We could do a live chat about it here. Let's just put it up. All right.
they're arm wrestling in plain clothes, right? But they have no shirts on, but they have plain clothes pants on, and
Oh, this is amazing.
Hulk Hogan is wearing flip flops.
With slacks, right?
With his like bell bottom slacks, and then they have this arm wrestling thing.
I'll just turn it on low. We can keep talking.
And
Look,
it's just like
they have slacks on.
and it just goes, it gets crazy. Like Andre the Giant has this crazy afro.
My God, he's like, I've only drank 58 beers today, so.
And the thing about this was the many weeks the top rated show on Memphis television out of all television shows. Some weeks it would be beat by Little House on the Prairie, would do better than wrestling. But wrestling would be Heat Hall, anything else that was on TV in Memphis. All
I think there's a there's got to be like a studied pipeline of the grandma to grandson pro wrestling thing. I feel like that happened a lot in Memphis. Like you'd see the crowd. The crowd would be like grandmas.
Yeah,
but that was my grandma got me into wrestling too. Like because she would watch it with me.
And that even transcends location. Like that's the case a lot in Mexico. There's a lot of
the grandmas, yeah, dude.
To get their
because it's like a soap opera thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it really is. Oh, what happened?
Who is that guy? Who is that? Oliver Humperdinck?
Oh, he just lifted the table right up.
Oh, here we go.
Of course, we cannot.
That took a turn.
Hogan is the heel here.
Yeah, Hogan's.
And he's stomping him with the flip flops. Flip flops stomping him.
Have you ever wondered why it was?
He's putting the flip flops to him.
But there's so few people there. A friend of mine who grew up in Memphis did me to this. They would do a raffle every week to determine who would get to go and actually be at wrestling. Like there were thousands of people who
in the
wanted
studio.
Yeah.
Is Hogan wearing a wig?
No, this is before he lost his hair, I think.
Yeah, he's already thin, and you can tell.
Like in the studio.
Manny, is that you doing that?
This is like such a vicious beatdown.
Yeah, very.
I think Andre gets some color.
Oh, what's happening there? He's biting his face.
He's biting him.
Jesus.
Yeah, Andre the Giant's, I think, getting bloody. Yeah, he's bloody.
Pre-NWO heel Hogan is almost as rare as Japanese strong work rate Hogan, you know?
Look at this. And here's Andre fighting back. This is as good as WrestleMania 3, if not better, right here.
Yeah, well, they're certainly moving a lot faster.
Andre is in way better shape.
Yeah, their wind is much, much better.
Oh, man.
So good. That's so good. So the
Being able
TV
to see
show,
wrestling in a room this size is a wonderful
so the TV show
thing.
was just in this little studio, but like they
Yeah.
still also did the events at whatever it was, the Mid-South
Yeah,
Coliseum. or whatever.
Mid-South, and here locally it would be at the Louisville Gardens.
Right.
I got to see the last wrestling show in the Gardens in I think 2000, in the early 2000s, and
Did you know, I saw some photos of the Mid-South Coliseum recently. It's owned still by the city of Memphis, and it's empty, and they use it as like a garage. Like
Oh,
like
wow.
the salt trucks and stuff are in there.
yeah.
And they said that they were going to they tried to sell it to Lawler for $1, but Lawler wouldn't buy it because he didn't want to pay the taxes on the property taxes on it.
Well, I mean, you can't blame him at this advanced
You know, like,
stage.
what's he gonna do? Completely
What is
revamp?
he really gonna do?
I think Tony Khan should come in and revamp these old, like the Cow Palace, and rebuild or fix up the Mid-South Coliseum and have events there.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody would do it, it would be him, right?
Him, right? Because he'd do crazy shit.
Yeah. AEW is going to be here next Wednesday in Louisville, but I managed to get second row seats. So I'm excited.
Sick.
Yeah, I still enjoy their programming. It's I think it's clearly taken some hits of late, but I know the wrestling will be strong at the very least.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, the one thing about AEW that like gets a lot of criticism is they always post pictures of like empty arenas and stuff.
Sure.
But here's the thing: they're when they're filming, they're not going to book people to sit where the cameras aren't showing.
No, they don't at all. I mean, when you're there,
So
live, you can see like this. You can see where they didn't sell those tickets. They very deliberately do that.
I mean,
Right. They shouldn't be doing arenas. You know what I mean? Like hockey, basketball arenas, but they're still getting like 7 to 8, 10,000 people, for a weekly show, which isn't bad.
I also think that there's not a lot of 7 to 10,000 seat venues.
Exactly.
It's a weird number. Like they have one that they do by us. That's like it's the Temple basketball arena that seats like 9,000, and it's like perfect for them. But like, I feel like there's not that many venues of that specific size.
Like what was ECW arena in Philly? What did that hold?
Tiny,
Like
maybe,
1,000?
Yeah, maybe they still have events there. So it's so small, like compared
But
to like
no one gave them like attendance issues. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When they were
Oh,
competing.
yeah.
So I saw AEW at in Buffalo where the Sabres play. Can't think of the arena, but it was cool though because you actually get to see wrestling matches, and it's not just like people coming in doing their promo
Interview. Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't like none of that. Like you actually got to see that. And I did meet Jerry Lawler once. He was nice.
Yeah. Was he at an airport?
I met him at a Comic-Con.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I saw him at he would do this guy is the hardest working guy in wrestling, man. He would do events, card shows like nonstop. Dude, he can retire, I'm sure. And
He's also an artist.
Either,
I know, and he got into it via his art, which is amazing. He's a way better portrait artist than I could ever be.
Yeah.
I saw him in like May at a local con here. I live in Southwest Florida, and unfortunately, he had a stroke that day. I saw him right before all that happened, and I was talking to him, and like really nice guy, man. And
he seems to be back up and running now.
Yeah.
Seeing more photos of him
says he was on Raw
white.
in August.
Yeah.
He made an amazing return to Raw.
Oh, okay.
He's walking around and stuff at this point. He's not doing
his beard and stuff is all gray now.
Yeah.
But he's actually a really good artist himself. I mean,
oh my god, he's amazing.
He's super into Kurt Swan. He's a Kurt Swan guy.
Yeah. He could have been I think he could have been a cartoonist himself.
He could have. He got into. That's how he got into wrestling. Was by drawing pictures of the wrestlers, and they were like so impressed by it. They brought him out on the show. This is like when he was a teenager.
One of those guys whose just life story is just unbelievable.
Crazy.
Yeah, man. He's a fascinating guy,
Crazy.
Yeah, there's some really amazing pieces. I didn't know he was
Yeah, yeah, he's
really good.
He had a Conan piece he did that he showed me at the con. That was amazing. I'm like, this could have been the cover to like any Conan comic. Like,
Yeah, no, he's really, really, really good.
He illustrated a book that Mick Foley wrote. It's like a Christmas story, like a
He
WW
illustrated it?
Christmas. Yeah,
That's
from-
crazy.
dude, I gotta find that because Mick Foley's my favorite wrestler. So
Yeah, you should. You should have that book. It's like
Yeah.
maybe like 22 years old at this point. But,
Bret Hart is kind of a cartoonist too.
yeah.
interesting.
He draws kind of like more like Mad Magazine, like Mad Magazine Don what's his face?
Don
style.
Like more Todd or something. Like
Yeah, like Don Martin kind of.
Don Martin, yeah.
Oh man. Well,
It's interesting the way comics and wrestling intersect so much. You know, like it's
there's such an overlap in the fan base.
Yep.
For sure.
Yeah.
Like it's just crazy. Like, and it's very similar. Like I always think that when I think about like the 90s, right? Like there was this extreme thing going on in both scenes, right? Like
good point. Yeah.
Like the guys went from being normally ripped to like absolutely shredded steroid jack in both.
Yeah,
things.
having like 6 quads and
in comics too. It both happened, and then in both cases there was a boom and bust that happened like right around the same time, like in mid 90s. But both comics and wrestling were at like the bottom. Like 1995 and 96 were like wrestling was like absolutely at the bottom, and comics was at the bottom. And then it all got turned around.
Yeah.
Wrestling got turned around right after that.
It's got to be like the storytelling element, the like bigger than life characters that you create.
Yeah. I that's definitely it. You know, and you know, costumes, names. You know, melodrama.
It is. It's a fantasy, and like there, it's also like a soap opera too, like where you have to cliffhanger every week and.
Yeah, people falling into comas and waking up, you know.
Yeah. Anything can happen.
And you take a little something from these stories and bring it into your real lives. And I only say that because I did the Greco-Roman wrestling in high school. And this one dude came right up to me and lifted me above his head and spun me around and threw me down on my shoulder and pulled the WWE move. And I'm ruined for the rest of my life because of it. My shoulder.
Really?
Off my rotator cuff.
That's crazy.
I didn't know you were a wrestler.
Well, I quit because I didn't want to cut my hair. They're like, son, you either cut your hair or you can't wrestle. And I was like, guess I'm not wrestling anymore. But anyway, but it's like, you know, you would do the same thing where you'd be out in the parking lot and you'd try to fly like Superman, or you know, you do these things in your life, you bring it home from these stories that you read or you take place.
Like I remember like seeing the movie, like the 1989 Batman film with Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
And I was like in the theater and I went to the bathroom like during the movie. I just remember like walking down a few steps and like jumping down 5 steps and being like, yeah, I'm Batman. Like
Exactly, man. Those little things like that you just subliminally do to yourself, you know. I bought these one gloves in the 90s, I remember, because I thought they made my hands look like Joe Madureira hands. You know, it's like these little things that you just take from comics and life, you know, it's like that make you who you are and make these little things and make you want to like go forward and write a book like the He-Man Effect, because it has that effect on like every little part of your life, you know.
Yeah.
Love it, man. Love it, man. Really enjoyed talking with you, Brian. Oh, you know, we never got to ask about where the box nickname came from.
Yeah, I wanted to. Yeah,
it's a stupid story, but I got it in college. Like my first day of college, someone said I looked like a shoebox, and then everybody started calling me Box. And but then I made Box Brown was my Instagram, or no, AOL Instant Messenger handle.
Of course.
And,
bringing it back.
And then from there, it was also my live journal handle. And when I started making comics, I was posting them in live journal. So I signed them Box Brown.
Nice.
And so that's how I started. That's how it became like my comics name.
It's funny how people of our generation that kind of grows with them. You know, it's like
Yeah,
started it to be funny as something.
yeah.
Now you're like,
There's a cartoonist named Seth that talks about it too, and he's like,
Yeah.
he's like, I gotta be called Seth my whole life. He's like 60-year-old man now.
yes.
Who has like a cool and regular name, which is Greg Gallant, which is a cool sounding name.
Yeah.
But it's
Oh, I
just
thought
like,
his name was just Seth something.
no. But he has to just go by Seth because he made
Yeah.
up this name in like art school or whatever it was. But so
So-
yeah, you got to live with it. You know, I'm sure like Flea got tired of being called Flea at some point, but he's like nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. I love that kind of stuff, man, because there really is nothing you can do. Like, even if you're The Rock, people still
Yeah.
call you Dwayne The Rock Johnson. You're not going to get.
Yeah.
It's never going away. Stone Cold
Yeah.
Steve Austin, like
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
Hulk Hogan, not Terry Hogan, you know? Like,
yeah.
God.
Like that's it. You're it.
It's
if you
amazing.
could always take that angle, you know, it's like a wrestling. It's like the wrestling,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah,
Box Brown.
I can't do anything about it, though.
Yeah.
I can't. I have to. You know, there's it's like John Cougar Mellencamp. You know.
Yeah. Good.
Where's he at now? Is he John Cougar? John Cougar?
No,
Mullen?
now he's John
Okay.
Mellencamp. So he's
that?
he successfully after like 20 or 30, 40 years
Drop the Cougar.
was able to drop Cougar, but he was like the only guy who actually was able to do that.
That's so funny. The gradual 30-year transformation.
Yeah,
from John Cougar back to the Mellencamp.
right.
Amazing. All right. If no one else has anything else they'd like to say, the book is The He-Man Effect. It's in your local comic book store now. One of many amazing histories by Mr. Brian Box Brown that you can check out. And I guess that's it. Until next month, don't just read more comics, be more comics. All right, y'all.
Thanks for coming by, everybody. Thanks, Brian. That was a lot of fun,
Yeah.
man.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, fantastic. Man. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right, take it
See
easy.
you later.